Okay. Colleagues, are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much. So I'm going to start right away. And like I had indicated prior, we're going to share with you two types of CVs. The first CV is going to be the bad CV. I have shared with us the link to the job advert, which we had in mind when crafting the good and the bad CV, right? So please kindly click on that link to see the job advert was put out by UNFPA, and it was for a gender-based violence specialist role, UNV. So we had this in mind when developing these two CVs. And we would also have a competency-based interview question, which would come up with Betrand and Arnold. That would also be focusing on the same job interview question. So that said, I would want to go really, really quickly so that we have enough time for engagement right after. So it is noted that many times when we say, when people are asked to submit CVs, even myself, I had a lot of palpitations the very first time I had to develop a CV myself. And I have had a lot of people reach out to say, I would like you to help me in reviewing my CV. And many times there are common errors that I have seen on the CVs. Many times people have said I've submitted CVs quite a lot of times and I've never been longlisted or not even been shortlisted. It could be as a result of multiple reasons. But again, the CV is that particular document that gets to speak for you, that advertises you without you even getting to meet your potential employer. So what this means basically is that your CV needs to be very strong enough in a manner that allows somebody to be convinced that you're the right person for the role. So starting off with this, I'm going to say that always strengthen your CV in a manner that does not speak to just you, but speaks to the requirements and the desires of the recruiter, of the potential recruiter. So what this implies is you want to go back to the job description. I would say always take out time, at least an hour, to study the job description line by line. Know what the background is, know what the objective of that particular role is, what are the activities that the potential candidate is expected to perform upon recruitment, what are the competencies that are required for that particular role or job you're going in for. This is something that I've noticed that is constantly missed out a lot. A lot of people do not have the patience to be able to pick out all of this. So, very quickly, when you look at this CV right in front of us right now, you discover that we live in a generation of quote and unquote Gen Z. And many times they want to use these buzzwords, they want to use those cliches, which many times do not speak a lot to your level of professionalism. For instance, here you have the very first part of the CV saying, hit me up, right? And if you get this from somebody, basically they would be intending to pass across information such as my contact information, like contact me through this, but this isn't really good for your CV. So it will be good for you to take this out of your CV. Again, you have them beneath that, you have also at the level of the contact information. The person has information such as marital status. Many times we would advise that take out this marital status from your CV, not because it's bad, but it's also bad for your CV in a way. So in essence, this can be an area of discrimination for you. Sometimes people put their nationality on their CVs. Many times it will not work to your advantage. Even though in some cases, some people put this up as a way to show that they come from the nationality that's required from the job. But for the most part, recruiters would always do their background checks regardless. And if you're applying on online platforms, you discover that there is always areas for you to fill that in. So many times it's always good to go straight to the point. In this case, you see that this person goes as far as adding a personal motto. It may come across as you just being convincing rather than being professional. So it is really not necessary for you to add a motto or a personal mantra to your CV. It doesn't really add much to you, right? Then some people add their profile. Please, can we kindly mute our microphones, please? Thank you. Uh, thank you. So you see that there is some model. Some people go ahead to add pictures. Some people go ahead to add pictures to their CVs. It is really not advisable. It doesn't add an advantage. It is not an advantage. It does not add, it's not an advantage for you. We would always advise that please kindly remove this from your CV. Do not add pictures. It doesn't help you. Why? Because many times this could also serve as a ground for discrimination. And many times organizations get to use tools, AI applications to review CVs. So what this implies is that many times it wouldn't read this, or it may come around as something different, right? So please take this out of your CV if you have that. Then the personal statement. This is supposed to be a very, very strong part of your CV. And generally, this part of your CV is coined with reference to the job description. So it talks about you, it talks about like a summary of who you are and how that is connected to the job itself. So it needs to be a paragraph or two, but also very brief, like 3, 6 lines maximum, that talks about you. Now, look at this particular personal statement. The person just says enthusiastic, passionate, and committed humanitarian worker. What you will pick out here is the fact that the person even uses, there is a lot of typo. You see, committed is wrongly spelled. The person uses enthusiastic. These are just big words that really do not communicate a lot about you. And we'll be sharing with you what other words or how else you can structure this particular section on the other version of the CV. So, what I'm saying is many times when you are done working on your CV, you can even give another person to review for you. Try to take out all the typos. I'll give you, for example, there is this word enthusiastic. Here, you may think that it's a different language or it's an a distinction between British and American English. So you want to right click on this and ignore this before you submit. It does not speak well of you if your CV pops up and there is just a lot of this highlights all over the place. Now, moving on, you discovered that at the level of education, which is very important as well, this person just says, I have a bachelor's degree. Of course, in the job advert, like you would have seen on the link I shared in the chat, a bachelor's degree is a requirement needed for this particular job role, which is a good thing. But at the same time, look at the way the person spells clinical psychology. Clinical is wrongly spelled. And these errors, these repeated errors speak a lot about you. Typos, grammatical errors mean that you're not a coordinated person, you're not serious, you're not patient. And if you cannot manage basic errors on a CV, which is a key document for you, it also passes across like you can't manage serious responsibilities. So try as much as you can to take this off. And another thing we want to talk about here, I would like to share with you is the fonts you get to use. We'll share with you different type of fonts on the second CV we'll be sharing with you. Here you discovered that this particular person has about 3 or 4 fonts on one CV. It is not a cool thing. Some people use this sort of fonts like that which I'm highlighting right now, which sometimes should be used for headings in the body of their CV, whether it's in the body or the title section. Always try as much as you can to use the same font. And the most you can do is maybe switch it to italics or you bold it. But for the most part, do not do not um do not use too many fonts on your CV. Now, the skill this person has put up, you discover that if you go to the job description, the job advert, which I have shared in the chat, I don't know if we all have that already. You discover that sensitization, public speaking, and all of this, the lone skill you have here is public speaking. So you need to many times go back to the job advert and see what the hiring institution has there as their skills. Many times it is there, but a lot of candidates do not have the patience to read through in between the lines to pick out what the institution has as skills on that job advert. And many times you have the skills, but you just need to tailor them. And then let's go right very quickly to the level of professional experience. This is the very key part that gets to speak about you. This is the part that speaks about your level of experience. Remember that when you look at the job advert, there is a section on the job advert that speaks about the years of experience that the ideal candidate should have possessed. So one of the key things in your a professional experience section is to highlight how many years have you served in a particular role, right? So you cannot afford to write your professional experience without telling us without telling the potential recruiter that from you served with XYZ institution from this to that year. So you want to always make sure that the date is inclusive. I mean, just to highlight also that these names of organizations you see here do not exist. I created this off my head, so they do not exist. So this is just off my mind, off my head. So here, for instance, you see that this person says, for instance, that Visionary Organization for Community Service, Community Focal Point Mezam Division. This is okay, but when did you work in this organization is also questionable. From which year to which year? And when you're reviewing your CV, you want to be very sure that the year that you've put above as the number of years of experience, the sections in your professional experience are commensurate to that. Now, moving forward, you discovered that at the level of responsibilities, we would always say that design your CV, your professional experience section using the STAR approach. What does a STAR approach mean? It means that you should be able to situate your experience within a situation, the task that you performed, the activity that you performed, and then the result. More importantly, the result. What this implies is that you should be able to talk about what did you do, what are the results that you got, and be able to highlight this using experiences. Nobody reads a CV to pick out the tasks that you performed. The common error that people do is to say that if you're applying for a new role and you currently occupy role X, you just go to the job description that was given to you when you were signing your contract, copy the activity section, and paste inside your CV. It is very wrong. So how do we fix this? I would always say that go back to the job description for the most part, and I'll be very open with you that there are AI tools that are currently being used in reviewing CVs. So many times they insert your CV into these applications and ask the CV and instruct the CV to say, pick common words, for instance, that match with the job description, perhaps at 80% or 90%. So what this literally implies is that if you're writing your CV, be sure that the key words that are used in the job description section of that job advert literally future in your CV. They should be there. I'm not saying that go to the job description section of your the job advert and copy and paste. No. Read through, identify the key concept you find there, fit it into your own job experience, and then put that into your CV. Let's take, for example, this person's CV. This person says responsible for the collecting, and those are some of the typos that the person has. You need to read this over and over to be sure that the typos are taken off. Once again, this is nobody's CV. We crafted the CV with the intention of passing across common errors. So this person says responsible for the collecting of data on GBV prevalence, and you see prevalence is still wrongly typed in GBV communities. Much as this person might think that I have communicated, you've still not, this person still hasn't communicated anything. This person hasn't still said anything. If you were responsible for that, the person reading your CV would be saying, did you actually do it? It is one thing to be responsible for something, but it's another thing to be able to perform that. So in the next CV, we will show you what are the kind of words to use, like we said, be able to use action words from the start, be able to use figures, be able to communicate results. So if you have this kind of phrases in your CV, you want to take it out. Tasked with GBV case management. These are some of those words that do not communicate your professional experience, but rather just let you look flat like any other candidate, and your CV risks being put aside. Now, you see another buzzword such as curated, a harmonious working environment that enabled adequate teamwork. Now, many times on the competencies, they'll say they would want to see that you're good with teamwork. So this is the way this person wants to communicate it, but this is not what an employer wants to see. They want to see how you were able to um you were able to share your experience and the results that you got. Now, this again is another example for another institution. The person said, administer quality training to GBV service providers. Now, for example, when you go to the job advert, you discovered that training is a key thing. But here you want to tell us, what kind of training did you provide? What is the number of people, persons that you trained? How did you build their capacity? Because when you say capacity building, it could always come like training and the rest. And you see capacity building in the job advert is used as a word, but in on your CV, you want to be sure what sort of capacity building you're talking about. Is it technical assistance? Is it peer support group, networks? What is it that you use? You want to be very specific. Be very, very specific as much as you can. You still see that the typos keep coming up, the different fonts keep changing, and as we go on. And then here, this last section, what I wanted to share with you, like for example, in this organization, the person says Zion organization for the less privileged and like that. But what did the person do? The person literally went to the job advert. The person literally went to the job advert, copied the job advert, and then pasted here. Like if you are an employer, you literally see the same thing you had on your job advert on your CV, which speaks less of you. It says you are a lazy person. It doesn't communicate result. It doesn't say anything about you. You are not a professional. Now, the next thing I want to show you is at the level of language. Now, on that particular job advert, the job advert says that you should be a native speaker of English language. And then this person just comes here at the level of languages and just says English and Pidgin. It's a good thing to say that you speak Pidgin, but also at what level are you with English speaking? At what level are you with Pidgin speaking? Are you a native speaker? Do you just have working knowledge of English language? Are you at entry level? Where are you with this language, right? So you want to really work around that and see how you put it on a scale. This is another common thing that I see a lot on CVs. People put hobbies. I don't know if this still happens or what is the motivation of people who add hobbies to their CVs, but it doesn't work. It doesn't communicate anything about you. Many times the things I see a lot on CVs and hobbies is always traveling, for example. If you should say traveling, it comes to the employer as you want to spend you even if you're given the job, you spend the rest of your time traveling, you spend less time on the job, you spend all of your time, you'll never be available. Now, another example, if you're doing a cooking you're getting into a cooking role, maybe adding that you're a good chef as a hobby, it might speak so well of you. But also coming to other roles like the development and humanitarian setup in or corporate sectors, it might be a little bit difficult for this to really help you stand out. So I would stop here and I would project again the version of of the good CV. So this is the version of the good CV, and like I see people are requesting already, we would get questions right after. And then we will be able to share with you these samples at the end of the presentation. We'll share with you all of what the materials we'll be using today. We'll be sharing with you today, and then the recordings as well. So, this is what you may want to have at the level of your contact information. Aminata, s'il vous plaît, est-ce que vous pouvez muter? Aminato, s'il vous plaît, vous pouvez muter, s'il vous plaît? Merci
D'accord, je ne
beaucoup.
savais pas que le micro est...
D'accord. C'est compris. Okay, so getting back, this is what you want to have at the level of your contact information. One key error I have seen, even at the level of international organizations, people applying, and the UN generally. Aminatos, vous pouvez muter, s'il vous plaît. Votre micro est toujours ouvert. Merci beaucoup. So at the level of the contact information, I think the error I see many times they add their email addresses, but it is the wrong email address. Sometimes they write email addresses which are not reachable. You send a lot of emails to those email addresses and they never go through. So my recommendation here is that much as this section looks okay, try as much as you can for the most part to see that your phone number and your email addresses are always correctly written. So once they are correctly written, it eases contact. Then what I wanted to highlight again, I don't know if there is anybody on the call that doesn't use LinkedIn. Please, if you don't use LinkedIn, please go ahead and create your LinkedIn profile. And for those who do a lot of activities, try as much as you can to highlight the activities that you do on your LinkedIn profile, because in addition to your CV, people want to see what is it that you've been doing. It speaks even much for you. And a lot of people have been contacted because of their profile on LinkedIn as well. So try as much as you can for the most part to always share your LinkedIn address on your contact information section. And then sometimes some people also have very good Facebook profiles where they've been doing their work. You may also want to add that maybe somewhere down on your CV. Some people have publications. If it speaks to the work you're applying for, you may also want to add that on your CV. So that was by the way. And then you see here, we've removed the picture. And then this is what the personal statement looks like. I may not get into the details of reading through, but when we share this with you, we really hope that you're able to take out some time to read the structure of this personal statement. You'll discover that here, the person highlights their years of experience. The person highlights that their years of experience is also focused around gender-based violence, which is what the job advert talks about. The job advert also talks about experience where you must be experienced in. I think that it talks about social works, clinical psychology. This particular personal statement highlights that as well. It talks about the candidate having a bachelor's degree. You see that in this personal statement, that person highlights that. And then from this whole section, you discover that the applicant literally summarizes their experience, which is based on the requirements of the employer and on the advert. They've been able to summarize it. So this is also what you want to look out for. And then the applicant by has also wrapped this up by saying that they look forward to a world that is free of gender-based violence and striving hard towards putting an end to this social issue. So this is it. This is wrapping it up. So I think that this person also writes in the third person singular. Many times some people just write bluntly, but you also want to make sure that the tenses you're writing with are also very correct. Now, for my suggestion most times to people is that an employer immediately after seeing your personal statements wants to see that all of what you've written in your personal statement, what justifies that, right? How do you explain it? The next thing they want to see is a professional experience. Initially, when I used to write my CV, what will follow my personal statement will be my educational qualification, and then my uh would be my personal, my professional, would be rather my educational experience and then my language proficiency. But with time, I switched it. I switched it because your personal experience section had a direct link with your personal statement. So here you want to admit, you want to link it. So immediately after your professional statement, my recommendation, it is not the norm, but my recommendation would be that link your personal statement directly with your professional experience. So the good example you'll see here is that this person highlights the institution they've worked with, which is the same we saw in the previous, and then they've added the year and even the month they worked in that particular institution, and then the location. Now, let's look at how this person brings in numbers and also brings in results based on the job description. The job description on that advert had actually talked about analysis, conducting analysis. So how did this person structure that to make sure that analysis comes into the CV? This person says, conducted a gender analysis in 6 project communities in the Northwest to identify factors influencing the prevalence of gender-based violence, right? So this person has brought in numbers, conducted, you see that's a verb. Always start your professional section, your professional experience section. Each of those lines should start with an action word because people want to see the action you performed. And then bring in the numbers, bring in the results. The person goes ahead to say, provided GBV case management services to 104 women, 34 men, 24 boys, and 62 girls within 6 communities during a 1 year, 2 months period. So this person is bringing in the duration within which they worked, but also being mindful of the duration of the project and how the number of years or duration you've put at the top where you see highlighted at the duration you work in that organization. It should not exceed the duration within which you've stated that you work in the organization. The person has brought in what you were doing and then the targeted number, which still speaks a lot to impact. Wrote 14 monthly reports / summaries and 1 annual report to keep funders updated on the project progress, impact, challenges, and finances. So this is a little bit of it. In order not to waste a lot of time, we are very happy to share with you this presentation at the end of the day. You see, for example, say led 4 community advocacy campaigns in 6 with 6 traditional leaders and 3 women's group in 13 and 13 religious leaders on the relevance of preventing gender-based violence and at community level. So you see all of this, designed and disseminated 652 copies of information, communication, and education materials. So more importantly, you're bringing in figures, you're structuring this, you're speaking to impact as well. So I'll share this with you at the end of the session for you to keenly go through. And then at the level of the education, master's degree, this is what I do for myself. You may also want to bring in another way of, presenting yours, but just try as much as you can to be sure that it does not look clumsy, but also passes across the information. This is a master's degree. You have a master's degree in clinical psychology. You obtained it in 2024, and then the institution where you got that from is clearly highlighted there. And then this goes on to other training courses. An institution, for me, I would like to add this. For example, if I have received some training, the hiring institution is UNFPA. If I have received some trainings around GBV, I would highlight that. If it is still UNFPA that provided that training, I think it will speak very strongly of me, and that is the reason why I bring that in. Another requirement from the job description is level of language. So you see here that when I say English language, I still put it on a scale. I am a native speaker. Native speaker means that's the language that you're trained with. That's the language that you best speak. That is your native, it's your thing, it's your language. Pidgin as well in this particular context, given that the role is launched for the Northwest region. Pidgin will be a good thing that helps you to interact at community level. So maybe you want to put that on your CV as well, so that it indicates to the employer that you can engage clearly at community level. I know that some people would say that it is not an official language, but it is an add-on. It is an add-on. In the job advert, they said you may have working language of working knowledge of French, and it'll be an added advantage. So this is also something which you want to bring into your CV. That is if and only if you're sure that you have that working knowledge in French. But if you don't have it, feel comfortable to stay at the level where you are. These skills, we imported these skills, we brought them out directly from the job advert. At this level, you're not supposed, I will not say that you should recreate something. You can rather add to this list, but you already have this in the job advert. So be sure to pick it out from there so that you are not reinventing the wheel. Now, the last section I have here would be for references. And my observation has been that many times, even if you're shortlisted for the role, they will still contact you, they will still send your reference forms to your referees. So what this means is this is clearly optional, especially at the time when your CV should be at around 2 pages. It should not exceed 2 pages, especially if you're a beginner. It should not exceed 2 pages. So this is going to be it. I'm going to stop here, but again, I'll quickly just rush through a wrap up for this session so that we just put it together, and then we have information for, we bring together the two CV types. Oh dear. Okay, so these are just a few tips, and we'll be sharing this again with you. You would have noticed me talk a lot about tailoring your CV, to the role. Ensure that your contact details such as links and then are added, and then make sure that they are actually correct. Your resume it should not include sensitive information such as your nationality, your date of birth, your marital status, because this can rather put you at risk. You should add a succinct profile. We've seen that not long ago. Avoid using big words like go-getter, hungry for success, self-starter. It doesn't really say much about you. And then, like I have said, your CV as well should showcase your selling points based on your career level. And we just want to stress here that beginners should start with the academic background, because maybe sometimes this one could come out very strongly for you. These are for people who do not have a lot of years of experience. This can stand out for you and influence the employer to want to really look deeply or reconsider, especially for CVs that are reviewed manually. Then consider the volume of your CV. Like we said, it shouldn't go above 3 pages. It should always be within the range of 2 to 3, ideally. Then I would say this again, focus a lot on your achievements and not just passive activities, because people want to see what you've done. They want to see the kind of impact that you've created. How many people did you touch? And again, make edits with the mindset of the employer. Like I said, go back to the job advert, pick the kind of words that you see being used there and used as keywords and import them into your CV, and then pay attention to the details. So, and make sure that you correct all the typos, try to see that the punctuations are correct, and then proofread, more importantly, for errors. It does not speak well of you if somebody picks up your CV and sees that there is a lot of errors. A lot of times I would say that for those, for example, that would say submit your CV as an email, I would say that many times share your CV as a PDF, because sometimes when you convert to PDF, there is not a lot of changes that happen. But if you leave it as Microsoft Word, and maybe you worked on with American English and you're switching now to British English, you may have a lot of challenges with all of those underlining coming up here and there. So many times I may say that be sure to convert your CV if you're submitting to PDF before submitting or uploading it to a system. And again, one thing I want to say is, one thing that makes CVs too long is the addition of irrelevant, maybe this is a hard word to use, but also word experiences that do not speak directly to the role you're applying for. This is the reason why sometimes CVs go above 3 pages. You may have a wealth of experience, but always tailor it and make sure that it speaks to that particular job description you're going in for. So we would say that start many times from your most recent experience. Like you cannot be in 2025 and you're still working in 2025, and then your most recent experience, you're bringing 2021 to start up your experience section of your CV. Start from the most recent, and then, like we've said already, keep it to at most 2 pages. And I just wanted to again highlight, like you see on the screen, you see somebody would use a statement such as implemented security measures to reduce cybersecurity incidents by 15% and safeguard sensitive company data. This is a good example for the professionals experience section of your CV. A bad experience would be responsible for reducing cybersecurity incidents. You know, you see the clear differences between these two. And then these are some key tips which I think you would be able to read through. I think we've been able to highlight all of this. And one thing that we've done is to add also some other fonts that may help you to make your CV really, really readable or reader friendly, right? So your good CV should really be easy to read. It should be really compatible with the software that is called most times the applicant tracking system. This is what you see many organizations get to use. And then it should be error free, like we've said. And then it is not about what you think that you're writing. It is about what the person advertising the job literally wants. So try as much as you can to speak the language of the employer. This goes without saying, go ahead and cut and paste. Do not do cut and paste. Please edit and pick just the keywords and feature those on your um on your CV. So thank you very much for following through this presentation. Um we'll be moving to the second session. We are just again pleading that if you could kindly just jot down your questions so that it allows us to take the engagement section of the session all at once, it will be very helpful for us. Um, Arnold, are you there so that I start off with your presentation with Bertrand? Bertrand, are you in now?
I'm sure Betra is still trying to connect. The internet is not stable at its end.
Okay. Are you able to kickstart?
Sure.
Perfect. Are you able to see my screen now?
Yes, I can see it 5 on 5.
Okay, so let me slide to PowerPoint slideshow. Thank you, Arnold, and over to you.
Okay, thank you, Marita, once more. Greetings again to all. So we'll begin with the competency-based interview section. And to proceed, we'll have a recap of what we talked about last time, how competency-based interview questions are approached. So we'll, Marita, please slide to the next slide, please. Okay, thank you so much. As a recap of what we had last time, A competency-based interview is simply designed to assess some specific skills as needed in the job description, as needed in the role which you have applied for, some behaviors and some attributes required for that particular role. So every position, like Marita spoken about the CV, every position is tailored to a particular job description. So same as the competency-based interview questions. They want to test their skills. They want to scale and test some behaviors that are aligned with the particular role you have applied for. And in a competency-based interview, the interviewer want to test specific competencies that align with that specific role. And the best way to approach such interview questions are through past examples which you have managed within your past positions you have held. Giving a clear overview of how you have managed a role, the tasks you are assigned to carry out, the situation, the action you took, and what results you did at the end of that task. So the interviewer will evaluate us based on a predetermined criteria, which they have set on the interview sheet. So we should always bring in these examples so that we fall clearly within the criteria set for this particular interview. Marita, please, the next slide. Okay, in order to understand what the competency-based interview is derived from the competency-based framework of the particular role or the organization which you intend to work for. This competency-based interview, as Ella stated, they aim to evaluate our past behavior to predict how our future performance in that role. So based on examples of similar actions we have carried out in different roles, it will give an overview of how we will perform in the present role. Generally, competency-based questions are always open-ended. This gives us the freedom to express ourselves freely. With a competency-based interview, we try to check out our teamwork capabilities, effective use of certain resources. If you are a payroll personnel or a human resources personnel, they want to check and test something like your use of payroll softwares, like the search payroll softwares, and also cultural diversity, how good you are to work within different cultures among persons from different cultural background. So those are the skills which are generally tested within a competency-based interview question, among others like communication skills, your leadership qualities, etc. So this clearly, depending on the question which is asked, you tailor your competency-based question based on the skills required for that position. Marita, please, the next slide. So for the competency-based question, we use a STAR approach. The S there stand for situation. That means you give a background, you give a context which you have worked in that is related to that particular role. For example, you could be asked to give your experience managing recruitment. So the situation is within the coming of a project XYZ, we needed to recruit 4 staff within that project. And that is the situation. 4 staff within the XYZ project. So the T there stands for tasks, your responsibility, and the deliverables we expect us to carry out. So the responsibility, you have to plan the end-to-end recruitment process for that recruitment for the 4 staff within that project. Then the actions taken, what did you do for the recruitment of the staff, you start maybe with the job position request, you start with developing the job description for that role, you start with launching that position, you start with long listing for that position, you start with short listing for that position. Those are the different steps or the different actions you will use to ensure you properly manage the recruitment for that role. And this goes clearly by bringing in an example of a particular recruitment you have managed. This should clearly show the situation, the tasks you carried out, and the actions you took to manage that recruitment process. And at the end, what are the results? The results will be we hire competent staff to manage a particular role, and which led to a successful project implementation. That is the guideline for the competency-based interview questions. In summary, you just bring up an example of a situation you have managed within your past role, bringing and cite it within the context of the role you have been interviewed for, following the STAR method. Hello, Marita, please next.
So at this point, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Arnold. So at this point, colleagues, what we're going to do, I'm going to read out the questions as per the different levels of competencies, and it's going to be like a communication between Arnold and myself. I'm going to be reading the questions which you're going to see on the screen. And please kindly be keen a little bit to get the sort of responses Arnold is going to be providing for this question, right? The way he will be responding to this question will be taking into consideration this same STAR approach which he has just read out. You'll be taking into consideration the situation, the task, the actions, and then the results. So this is also the key. This is the key part of this particular webinar. So we wish you could kindly pay keen attention on this particular portion, because if you make it through the interview session of a particular recruitment process, you must face a competency-based interview. And even if you do not face, you are not told that this is a competency-based interview. This is how you would be able to respond to questions in a manner that makes you stand out, right? So please kindly pay attention to this particular segment of the presentation. So Arnold, are you ready so that we move on to the next session, the questions?
Yes, I'm ready, please.
Okay. So the very first question we'll be taking will be on cultural diversity. This is a key competency. So, Jerry, are you able to mute your mic, please? Thank you. So this cultural diversity, this question goes like this. Tell me about a time when you had to design or adapt a human resource process in a culturally diverse environment. How did you ensure that local customs were respected while still upholding your organization's values of equity and inclusion? What was the outcome?
Okay, Marita, thank you so much. Within my experience as HRO, within one of our projects, a local economic development project, I was assigned to conduct a monographic investigation across several urban and rural communities with the aim to assess local resources and contribute to strategic development plans which are aligned with community priorities. So in my role as HRO lead, I was responsible for designing and implementing a fair and inclusive procurement process. However, during the process, I faced challenges, specifically cultural challenges, particularly in the rural areas, where gender norms and perceptions of authority limited women's participation in formal employment and influenced interactions based on age and status. So in order to address these challenges while maintaining our organizational standards for equity, I adopted a cultural a culturally adaptive approach. Firstly, I identify local focal points who were familiar with community customs and could serve as cultural bridges. Next, I then initiated consultations with traditional leaders, women's associations, and local NGOs to understand how best to engage diverse groups respectfully and effectively. Based on these discussions and based on these insights, I adapted all recruitment materials into local languages so that we culturally fit our recruitment based on the particular culture and the area we're implementing in. Secondly, I crafted gender-sensitive vacancy announcement that explicitly encourage applications from women and underrepresented groups. I also partner with our intercultural affairs and communications teams to organize cultural sensitive training for all hiring managers and field staff in order to promote inclusive hiring practices across all regions. As a result of this process I use, this targeted effort resulted in female recruitment increased within the different communities by over 35% compared to previous recruitments we have carried in similar areas. Also, I carried out a follow-up staff surveys reflecting significant improvement on the perceptions of fairness, respect, and inclusion among team members from varied cultural backgrounds. Lastly, the initiative enhanced the organization's local credibility and demonstrated our genuine commitment to inclusive development. Thank you, and over.
All right. Thank you very much, Arnold, for your response. Thank you very much for tackling every other component of the question. We will be moving now on to the next question. And our next question has to do with teamwork. So tell me about a time when you had to coordinate with multiple departments to meet a high-stakes project deadline. How did you ensure alignment and overcome potential conflicts or miscommunication? Over to you, Arnold.
Okay, thank you once more, Marita. Um, Within one of my roles as program officer for one of my organizations I recently worked with, I was to support a disarmament, demobilization, reintegration, and reinsertion initiative that required the urgent recruitment of over 1,000 field staff across different regions. This effort was critical to ensure a timely launch of the program's data collection activities and also involved collaboration with multiple departments, including technical, finance, logistics, and field operations, each with distinct priorities and communication styles. I was then appointed and tasked with aligning all cross-functional stakeholders, managing the end-to-end recruitment pipeline, and ensuring seamless onboarding and deployment of staff within a tight budget and timeline. To drive alignment and to minimize risks of delay or miscommunication, I implemented several structured coordination mechanisms. Firstly, I initiated twice weekly planning meetings involving focal points from each department to align on recruitment priorities, operational constraints, and delivery timelines. Furthermore, I designed a centralized recruitment dashboard accessible to all stakeholders to enhance visibility and allow real-time tracking of progress, any bottlenecks we could encounter, and feedback loops. Next, I designated departmental-specific focal points to streamline communication, collect timely feedback on shortlisted candidates, and surface potential issues proactively. Also, I established and communicated clear escalation protocols to accelerate decision-making when issues arose. Lastly, I also maintained an integrated recruitment calendar, combining HR, logistics, and deployment milestones to ensure synchronized field staff mobilization. At the end of this process, and thanks to this coordinated effort, we successfully recruited and deployed 98% of the required workforce within the program's strict deadline. The initiative contributed to achieving over 85% coverage within the first 2 months, a major milestone for the program. Additionally, feedback from department heads indicated significant improvements in communication flow, responsiveness, and interdepartmental alignment. We set a new benchmark for collaborative project execution. Thank you, and over.
Thank you very much, Arnold. Thank you very much for your response. Thank you very much for walking us through your experience with regards to this question. We're not done yet. I guess we have 3 more questions to go. And our next question would be around measuring change, right? So can you walk us through a time when you developed a standard operating system, or better called SOPs, or standard operating procedures for an organization? Can you walk us through this process? How did you go about it? Over.
Okay. In my previous role as HR officer, I observed that our HR processes lack proper documentation, which resulted in inconsistency in execution, compliance issues, and inefficiencies across key functions, such as recruitment, onboarding of staff, midterm and year-end performance evaluation, and also general decision-making. After a discussion with the senior management team, I was tasked with leading the development of a comprehensive standard operating procedure manual for the HR department to bring structure, consistency, and compliance to all our HR processes. To begin the process, I started by conducting a thorough gap analysis of the HR procedures that were existing at the time. I also reviewed existing practices. I identified areas that lack standardization, and I then benchmarked them against the local labor law, donor compliance requirements, and industry best standards. Furthermore, to ensure the SOP address practical needs, I engaged with all department heads and senior management through focus group discussions, one-to-one interviews, and also staff surveys. This helped me to understand their expectations and the challenges they face with the current system at the time. Based on the insights gathered, I developed a clear step-by-step procedures for core HR functions, including recruitment and onboarding, leave management, performance management, payroll processing, and contract management. And to ensure the smooth and the alignment of these policies and procedures, I outline roles and responsibilities to different stakeholders who will be managing these processes at every point. I also set deadlines for each process to be met and what documentation are required for each process. And lastly, I develop a corrective actions to mitigate any risks we may be facing in the future. Once this SOP was drafted, I conducted series of trainings with all staff to ensure they fully understood the procedures and they could effectively implement them. I also established a review mechanism, making this SOP a living document that could be updated regularly to reflect organizational changes and evolving donor requirements. At the end of this process, the SOP significantly reduced recruitment timelines by over 30%, improved compliance scores during external and internal audits, and also increased transparency and consistency in HR service delivery. This initiative also strengthened my skills in policy development, cross-functional collaboration, and regulatory compliance. Thank you and over.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your responses. Betrand, are you on now?
Yes, Marita, I'm back. Thank you very much
Okay.
for being patient.
Thank you. So to switch the responses, for us to have a change in voices, Betrand would be the respondent to the upcoming questions we will be getting. So thank you, Arnold, and I'm switching over to Betrand, who would be providing responses to those last two questions, and then he will wrap up the session before we get into questions and answers. So the next question we have, Betrand, is
Yes.
around production of results. So we understand you provided feedback, you provided us with responses as to teamwork and, production of results as well. But again, can you describe a time when you led a salary restructuring initiative? What challenges did you face and how did you ensure compliance, transparency, and staff buy-ins? Over to you, Bertrand.
Okay. We're in an interview session. Thank you very much for that question. Scanning through my past, I did occupy the role of a country and admin HR. And during my tenure, what I did observe was a growing dissatisfaction among staff regarding the salaries, especially net take home. This concern actually did arise shortly before an audit from the donors or by the donors, making it actually crucial to ensure that the salary structure is both compliant with the national regulation as well as aligned with the industry requirements as well as the organization as a whole. Given the urgency for this task to be conducted and ensuring that the audit goes on properly, uh, it actually became very essential to lead a comprehensive salary restructuring, processing both internal equity, legal compliance, competitiveness within the industry to ensure retention and financial sustainability. So I, as a HR and admin at that time, I started by engaging with the different stakeholders, especially internal, that is senior management, my HQ or headquarter colleagues of the compensation and benefits team, staff representatives, as well as external stakeholders, labor for guidance and the trade unions. I reached out also to colleagues in the industry, in other NGOs, to have a grip of the practice, their own salary scale, so that we could see how it aligns. Through a comparative analysis, I did discover that our structure only did not only include aspects like transport allowance, housing allowance, uh, which was not compliant. So on that basis, I started with redesigning the structure, the salary framework with key updates. First, disaggregating the basic salary to ensure that the different aspects, elements outlined earlier, that is housing allowance, transport allowance, representation, risk, are all included. On that basis, I convened a meeting including the different stakeholders, that is staff representatives, management, so that we all ensure that it aligns with the national practice and industry. This was also shared with the HQ colleagues to ensure that it matches also the global requirements. With that, I built a dynamic Excel sheet to do a simulation of the different impact on the payroll as well as the taxes, which actually at the end showed that there was a net reduction in the overall payroll tax and in the net salaries of staff. For matters relating to transparency and buy-ins, as I earlier mentioned, I did have meetings. The salary structure, new salary structure, was submitted to the level at the level of its labor inspectorate for review and visa, briefings with other staff. And at the end of the day, when we implemented these, there was a net improvement in staff morale emanating from the salary that came in. The second point is there was also an improvement in terms of tax benefits for the organization because optimizing the salaries also gave us a reduction in our salary or tax basket. So on that basis, I say we actually did produce formidable results that contributed in improving staff morale as well as our tax benefits. Thank you. Over to you, Marita.
Thank you very much, Bertrand. Thank you so much for your responses. Um, that was the last but one question for this session, and we will be moving on to the very last technical question for this interview session, which is basically going to be focused on um, analysis. Like, this is going to be a key responsibility of the occupant, the potential candidate who's going to be occupying this role. So please tell us about a time when you conducted a rapid gender analysis. What challenges did you face and how did you overcome the challenges? And what sort of results did you attain by the end of this analysis? Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. In the past, I did serve as a gender officer with a visionary organization for community service located in Meza. I did note that as background to projects that were funded, uh, also included aspects relating to GBV or gender-based violence issues in that region. The prevalence of gender violence perpetrated against women, girls, progressively boys was getting high. Therefore, this grant did sought to address or mitigate the root causes of gender-based violence, as well as to monitor GBV trends. In my capacity as a gender officer for the grant, I was tasked to conduct a gender analysis in the all the projects and the
For her.
communities in the.
Let me say her name is Marita, right? So she hosts
Can we please
she
switch?
convenes career chats for individuals who job
Marita,
hunt.
can we please mute our mic? Thank you. Okay, I was saying that in my capacity as a gender officer for the grant, uh, I was tasked to conduct a gender analysis in the different projects, communities in the region to identify the different trends, factors influencing the prevalence of gender-based violence within these project locations. So, for a start, I did conduct a desk review where I reviewed the different situation reports published by OCHA uh, over the previous months. The objective of this was to identify the persons or the people affected, men, women, boys, as well as girls, uh, where these people were located, uh, the type of GBV or gender-based violence types and forms that it happened, the available resources in these areas, and actions that the organizations did carry. I also went ahead to read about best practices documented on GBV analysis conducted on other conflicted areas that have similar that are similar to the context of the region. I looked at the different tools that were also used, the challenges that they faced and how they did overcome it, because I wanted to inspire myself from that to craft a more contextualized solution. From there, I did define the terms of reference. This was as a group, but chaired by me. I did design the terms of reference for the activity and shared with supervisors as well as coordinator of GBV for the subcluster for their inputs and approval. Uh, on the basis of an approved TOR, I did proceed with a data collection tool as well as consent form for the different persons who are to be interviewed to give their consent and approve. I facilitated the recruitment of enumerators for data collection. I conducted a training for the different data collectors where they learned how to mobilize respondents alongside the community leaders, the structure of the focus group, discussions, as well as many other aspects. I worked with the monitoring and evaluation team to analyze the data that was collected, proceed with report writing and visualization of this data to ease understanding. Uh, at the end of the day, we found that more women and girls were at risk as opposed to statistics. Men could as well be vulnerable, or men from data collection seem to be vulnerable but lack adequate mechanisms for reporting. They had held. Can you please switch your mic?
Of course he cares.
Can you please
like after everything that happened, you go missing? I mean, he thought something really bad happened to you. We both did.
I got called 2 days ago. He was asking me about a first sales sign for the I thought it was an understanding. So I demonstrated here. I told the students sign out of the gun. I threw in the garbage. Seeing that sign was like losing it all over again. I didn't want that. Fortunately. I'm gonna use my justice jumping into the house.
Mado, please, are you able to mute your mic? I'm trying to mute you from this end. Please kindly mute your mic. You're in the session. Thank you. Over to you, Betrand.
Thank you very much. The message goes to all the participants. Let's please mute our mic while one other person is on. Yeah. So on the basis of its finding that revealed that women and girls were more at risk compared to men who literally lack the adequate mechanism for reporting, we proceeded in collaboration with UNFPA to present the analysis during the GBV subcluster meeting. Yeah. From the findings, we also found that we needed to collaborate with other sectors when responding to GBV. Structures like Ministry of Social Affairs, MINPROF, and other legal entities and other institutions that could help provide legal frameworks. Findings also helped us to build a solid evidence base for resource mobilization that is going towards the different donors to get funds to conduct more of such analysis. So thank you very much. That makes it for the thank you.
So thank you very much, everyone, for following through with this presentation. What you just saw right now, not long ago, is a simulation session of what it takes for you to respond to competency-based interview questions. Like you would have noticed, they were all able, our respondents were all able to take into consideration the STAR approach. They've been able to highlight to us the situation, the task, the activity, and then the results. And then at some point you could hear them say they learned X, Y, Z stuff in the process of. So people have now improved this from being just STAR to adding an L at the end of R, you know. So I would leave the floor now for Betrand to wrap up the session with key tips that you must look out for in competency-based interviews, and then he would pass on the mic as well to Arnold to give his final words on this, and then we would open the floor for questions and answers. Over to you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, Marita. Sorry, I think during the shortly after I had challenges with network that didn't permit me to join early. But what we should retain about the competency-based interview is that the competency-based interview is designed to assess our skills. Skills relevant to the job, skills relevant to the organization or to the function that you plan to occupy or which you are applying for. That said, there is need for us to prepare. And to prepare, what do you need? You need to know the job. You need to know the competencies. You need to prepare scenarios.
Because
You need to prepare scenarios that are relevant and pertinent that will make you an outstanding someone. The scenarios are based on previous experience that can easily be transposed into a new working setting. I take it over. The scenarios are based on your previous experience, how you manage a situation in your previous experience that can be transposed to a new working environment. So, what you should note, prepare as much as possible. That is, craft scenarios, request for support for some other person when doing your practice. In the absence of somebody, make use of a recording device. It might be your phone, it might be your laptop, it might be you mirror yourself, such that you can, as well, you can
No,
you
it's in
can
the
you can you can easily identify the challenges or maybe the loopholes and correct them. And to conclude, I'll say that is the only way for you to look good in front of a recruiter. Thank you. I'll pass it over to Arnold.
Thank you, Betrand. Just to add to what Betrand has said, during the interview and when you are asked the competency-based interview questions, you should be able to familiarize yourself with these questions. Um, you prepare examples that tailor to those questions. They should not be general. It should be an example in which you have actually worked in a scenario you have actually took part in the past. That will be easy for you to present a clear star situation for it. A situation, a task, the action you took, the results you took. When you bring up these examples, you should clearly be focused on your role within that. It should not be generic, like you said, the team carried out this, the manager did this. What they want to test is your responsibility within that role. So if you are bringing up an example, it should be an example in which you took part in it. And if you bring out examples, you led that initiatives so that you can clearly explain what you did, how you did it, and what results you achieved at the end of the day. That way is easy. And also, you should be able to use the correct language that is required during the interview process. And also, like Bertrand has said, prepare before it, use the job description, reach out to persons in that domain. If possible, reach out to experts within the organization if you have one, so that they can properly guide you while preparing for competency-based interviews. Thank you and over.
Thank you very much, Arnold. Thank you very much, Bertrand. Um, before I open the floor for questions, I just want to share a personal experience that competency-based interviews are not specific just for jobs. For other stuff you may go in for, even if you're not told that you'll be going in for a competency-based interview, always use the same approach, this same star approach in approaching your questions. And I just want to continue from a point that Bertrand raised, where he said, and I think Bertrand or Arnold, that it is about you. It is always when you're writing your CV or even responding to questions, always know that it is not about the group. It is about you. What did you do? So basically in 2017, I failed the interview for Mandela Washington Fellowship. And later on, when I did my own personal or say self-assessment, one thing I noticed was I missed this interview because I spent the whole of my time trying to highlight team effort, trying to highlight how I could better coordinate with the team. And when I came back and I thought about it again over and over, I got to discover that I spent the whole of the time not during the interview, the question that kept coming up was, yeah, we get that the team did this, but what did you do? Right? You never want to find yourself in a situation where the panel is asking you, what did you do? Because two things will happen. It would pass across and it would get you panicking because it already sent across the message that you're not saying the right thing. It gives you also the message that it gives the panelists, the information that you didn't take active part in that activity. So many times when you're doing work, and this also goes down to us while you're still serving in organizations or serving in institutions or serving at whatever level it is that you are in, do not hide behind people to do things. Go always out of your way to ask for responsibilities that target you doing it so that tomorrow, if you're being asked questions, you can be able to say how you led. So this is how I felt Mandela Washington interview in 2027 because I was unable to put accent on what I did. Of course, there were a lot of activities that I had done, but I had not understood that you need to put the limelight on what you've done. You need to put um, emphasis on what you've done, right? So this is me opening the floor to us all. Nene has shared the link for the evaluation session. We are pleading that participants should kindly fill this evaluation form because this is what helps us to plan for our next session. Already we are thinking about holding a next session that focuses on what the what is UNV all about? What does it take for us to get a UNV role? What are the opportunities and growth chances within the UNV sector? So please kindly fill in the evaluation form which has been dropped in the chat box. Nene, please kindly reshare as many times as possible so that those who are joining fresh can also see the form. So our eyes are going to be on the chat box, but also you can raise your hand and ask a question. We are happy to have you on mute and ask your question. You can also use the chat box to ask a question. So the floor is now open for questions. Yeah, I'll go with Florence Ntube. Ntube, Florence, over to you.
Ntube.
Sorry, Ntube. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. So thank you, Marita, for that very beautiful presentation. Arnold and Bertrand as well. Please, I'm gonna post my question in the form of a scenario. I don't know if
Sure.
that's okay.
That's
All
very
right.
okay.
Okay. So imagine you're an entry level person, and in the organization where you were carrying out your activities, you're entry level, like an intern, but
Mm-hmm.
you get the opportunity to play like even officer roles in that organization.
Mm-hmm.
Now you leave the organization as an intern, but you really feel like you have the skills to take up an officer role. Now, during an interview, you're going to be asked competency based questions based on scenarios that may have happened to an assistant, for instance, or more or less an officer. But you've not been able to get into that role to face the situations. Now, you know you can do the job and you've been shortlisted for the exams, now the interviews. How do you go about answering the competency based questions that require an experienced you should give your experience, because I think Arnold and Bertrand really emphasize on that. When you're answering the questions, answer based on your experience. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, now I don't have the experience to do all to tell you, but I think I can do the job. So
Mm-hmm.
how do I how do I answer the competency based question? How do I even prepare for them? Because I think that was what Bertrand mentioned. You have to prepare these questions, but I don't have a scenario where I have actually, had to do these things to be able to have an experience to explain later to a panel. So how do I go about it?
I get you. I get you. Sometimes we even still do the job, and sometimes these questions come and we get to panic and we are not sure where to. We have ideas flying all over our heads, and you're unable to put them all together. I guess this is also why Bertrand was saying that before the interview, you need to create the scenarios and respond to them. Because basically, you see, all of these things they worked for like 3 weeks to work on these scenarios. They do not exist anywhere, but they both worked to come up with that. So you can always do the same when preparing for an interview. So I may try to respond to your question before I turn it over to Bertrand and Anod. So for me, first of all, it's very difficult for you to craft a response to something which you've not done before. It's very difficult. And if you also know that you can deliver on that role and you've been shortlisted. Remember, I say all the time that if you've at least been shortlisted for the role, it means there is something unique about your CV. There is something unique you communicated to the recruiters that made them feel that you're an eligible candidate for that role. So for me, it's likely that you've not done this role, but it is possible that you have seen somebody do this role and you know what the person did in order to get that role done. You know what the step-by-step process was. You know what the person did, or you've observed somebody do it, right? It may be unfair to say this, but unfortunately, you will not come to a panel to tell them that this is what some other person did. I'll just say that in this case, put yourself in the position of the person. Why am I saying this? I'm not saying that you should lie, because even if you lie, if you know the difference between you and somebody that clearly outrightly lying is the fact that the person doesn't know what is expected. You see the question Bertrand, the responses Bertrand put up for the gender analysis. You might not have conducted a gender analysis before, but you know that for you to conduct a gender analysis, you need to do a desk review, you need to collect data, you need to do community engagement sessions, you need to design tools, you need to, and then like that. So this is what you want to tell the person, that in this situation, when you were faced with this is what you did. The interviewer clearly wants to just know if you know what it takes for you to deliver on this particular activity. And this is the reason why you need to sit back down, look at the competencies, look at the key deliverables in that particular role, and then you prepare right ahead of the interview, right? And this is what preparation is about, because you do not know what you're going to be asked. You do not know where they're going to focus on. Even if you didn't do it and you've observed somebody do it, I would say that rather than miss out on the interview, put your shoes in the position of the person who did that particular task, and then you deliver on it. You put yourself in that person's position, right? And then it will fly. So I will hand it back to Bertrand. I'm not an HR person, but I'll hand it over to Bertrand and Arnaud to respond to this question. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Marita. Tube, relating to your question, I just want to recall that recruitment has several stages. Prior to you getting on board, you have to go through several stages. Looking at the job description or an offer which is published, there's generally a section referred to as eligibility criteria.
Right.
If you are retained for a written test, it therefore means you are eligible. You might not have had maybe extensive experience, but the point is, as a recruiter, you have several reasons why you are shopping people.
Yeah.
You might might be a good cultural fit
Mhm.
based on what you have elaborated on your CV. It's not only about experience or maybe the number of years of level of education. So if you have succeeded and you call up for an interview, it therefore means that you met the eligibility criteria. The second point is you doing your assignment. What do I say? What do I mean by you doing your assignment? Read the job description or the offer to identify the different competencies. In some offers, they might be explicit in that they'll clearly outline that the competencies are teamwork, leadership, producing results, analysis, keen to details, and so on. In the absence of that, you are required to read within the lines and identify those traits that are needed for you to deliver in that job. That's the starting point of you doing your assignment. What comes after is think, go through your experience. Maybe you're a beginner, you're just 3 years old, or maybe you just left school. When they talk about you crafting a scenario that's pertinent, it might not only be for that position. While you're in school, you were might be a team captain. I like playing football. I was a team captain. And one of the competencies on the offer is conflict management. I can craft a scenario that is based on management of conflict while I was captain of the school team, right? And during an interview, if I'm asked, how did you manage a conflicting solution in a team? Remember, they want to see how you did manage a situation in the past so that they can pick out the key elements that can be transposed into their own situation. If you showcase maturity, dexterity with some level of relevance in how you manage that conflict situation in the past, it is very obvious that in an organization where the culture is all about promoting youth, right, learning culture, inclusiveness, they will go for somebody who is eager to learn, who already has the basis, right, for you to join, and they'll teach you what has to be taught. So that said, do your assignment, do the scenarios, be confident, and always seek for advice from others. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you, Betrand. Arnold, would you like to contribute to this, please? Over. Arnold, are you still there? Okay. So I see Florence, I see your reactions. I understand that this will mean your questions have been addressed. You're comfortable with the responses. Um,
Very satisfied, actually. Thank you so much.
all right. Thank you too.
Marita,
Yes, please.
permit me. Uh, Often, one of the most difficult things in this is to come up with the scenarios. You
Yeah.
can have a talk with a senior person or a more experienced person,
Mm-hmm.
and the person can guide you while you're discussing about your experience. The person can tell you, okay, this is an example. We can use that like a scenario, right?
Yeah.
I had in the past, I moved from a country office to a regional office. This is part of my experience, right? And there is this question about cultural diversity that usually comes up, and many people have difficulties answering this question. Um, for me, I did have a different scenario, but discussing with somebody, the person told me, "But why don't you craft a scenario that outlines your passage from a country office to the regional office?" And from then, ideas came up, which permitted me to really show that moving from a country office where it is, first of all, smaller, you have people of very similar cultural background, to a regional office where you have like people coming from 5 continents, different nationalities, different cultures. That alone permitted me to come up with maybe was adopted by many persons. So discuss with other people. You might want to discuss with any other person here, Marita, Arnold, or me, whenever you need. Thank you, Marita.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Bertrand. And guys, Bertrand is a big hand. Like he clearly said, I met Bertrand when I was still working with the national organization. So it's been I've known Bertrand for what? Like since 2018 or 19 thereabout. And we've ended up working together at the regional office. So I know what he can deliver. So Bertrand, if you may, please kindly share your contact in the chat so that or your most preferred communication channel, please kindly share in the chat so that participants can be able to reach out to you if they should have further questions so that they can keep in touch. Betrand is always very available, but also he's a very busy person. So you might have to be patient with him and then, make your request right on time. Do we have any other questions, please? I don't see any hands up. Any questions, any contributions? Any questions so far? We are happy to share with you the presentations at the end. We would like to put them all together and then share with you. We also have a group where we share this easily because I don't have emails, I don't have text, so um I'll try and share the link to the group in the chat box so that people can join. And at the end, we would be happy to share the links to we'll be happy to share the presentations we've used and then the recording as well. So I see a question in the chat box. What would be the advisable length for the CV for people with more than 10 years of experience? Betrand, over. Betrand, are you there? Betrand, if you're speaking, you're muted. Okay, so I think Betrand might be faced with some challenges with sound. So maybe I should be taking the question before he comes in. Betrand, I see you're speaking, but unfortunately we can't get the sound. So I would say that to me, in my opinion, I would always say that uh please kindly, if you can be able to limit your CV to 3 pages, because with 10 years, you would have done a lot. In 10 years, you would have done just a lot. And I understand it is very, very challenging to write CVs all the time. But I say all the time that every job has its own CV. There is no one CV for all jobs you're ever going to apply for. So what this means is that for every job, you need to sit back down, look at the requirements. What is the person requiring? What is the employer requiring of you? What are the competencies or the experiences the employer is requesting from a potential candidate? And this is what are the tasks that is expected of a potential candidate upon application. So these are some of the things which you really want to look out for. And once you're sure that this is what the employer is looking for, you go back now to your CV and try and tailor your CV to fit exactly what the employer is looking for. Why? And many times people ask me the question, is 3 pages not too small? I would say it is not too small because when you go back to the job, advert, the whole job advert alone, if you take it and then you put it on a Word document, for example, you take that activity section and you put it on a Word document, you will discover that the whole job advert does not go more than 2 pages. So why would your CV go more than 3 pages? So it's always important to go back, tailor the CV, and try and see that it gets to fit to 2 to 3 pages. If it can't fit to 2, it should not exceed 3. It should not exceed 3. But again, what I would say, if you've ever filled the P11 form, or if you've ever applied with WHO or any UN agency, you discover that Many times they may ask you to upload your CV, but the exciting thing about them is there is always areas where you're supposed to fit in your experience. That one is always limitless. They do not ask for a limited number of words for the most part, at least for my experience. Maybe it may be different, but from my experience, many times you do not have limited number of words. So if it is in these ones that you just need to copy and paste in different areas, so they keep saying add your experience, add your experience, add your experience, you can add till infinity. But my opinion is, if it is a CV that you're to submit like hard copy or to submit virtually, it will be good to keep it short, because already it is challenging for recruiters. Recruitment is difficult than job application. This is the feedback I get from employers or human resource persons. So imagine you have to review 100 CV and there is somebody sending to you 18, 10 pages of CV. It may be very challenging for them to review. So it's always good to go straight to the point, make it succinct, let it speak to the job advert itself, and then you move on. So I think this would be my opinion. I think the internet has kicked Betrand out. I don't know if Arnold is still on the call. Okay, so I see another question. The question says, um, the question says also, what is the recommended number of bullets for each job, considering the bullets on the job description? This is tricky. I do not think that there should be, but it may be good to consult other human resource persons to know. But I have not come across any guidance that says that you must have a specific number of bullets. Remember that sometimes when you look at the job advert and your job experience, sometimes the job experience cuts across your experience in different job roles. So you might have done this in organization X, but will not have done this that is on the job advert. So it somewhat cuts across. So it's a little bit difficult for me to say that it must be limited to this number of bullets or this XYZ number of bullets. But I would say that try as much as you can to limit rather the number of pages. Um, could you also share a sample P11 form in the WhatsApp group? Yes, I can. I can share that. I think I have had one before, so I'll check and I'll share on the group. So, Nene, please, if Nene is still on the call, if you could kindly share the link to the link to the WhatsApp group where we often share. Okay, let me send this to Nene to share in the group, so that for anybody who would like to join, they can join the group so that they can access these materials at the end of the session. So please, once Nene drops this in the chat, please you can follow to join the WhatsApp group. This is where we would be sharing the materials. So I would look this up. I'll take this as a task and I'll share in the WhatsApp group. Please don't forget to share the link to the group. Yes, please. I've sent it to Nene. Nene is going to upload it right away. Please, any other questions, please? I think we've exhausted all the questions we have, but Namatama, I don't know if you're comfortable with these responses to your questions.
Yes, I am. Thank you. Just waiting for the P11 form. I appreciate
Okay.
that. Thank
All
you.
right. I will definitely share that. It's been long I used it, but I know that for every job that you want to apply for UN Women, they always have that. You need to download it and then you need to fill it as either as a PDF or a Word document. And I know that there is also UNDP. I know that there is also UNDP. There is also UNDP that uses the P11 form. Bertrand, are you in now? Yeah, I will share both the presentations and I would also share the recording of today's session. Okay. I'm sending the form now to Nene. Nene is going to share in this chat. So if you need it, you can directly either join and I'll reshare again on the WhatsApp group at the end of this call. But I've just gotten the P11 form now, the PDF. So please share in the chat for people who would like to access. So there is somebody asking if I can share I can reshare the older presentations. I'll see if I can access because the first one we shared as we transfer, it was very heavy. But for the ones that I can share, like for the last two sessions, I guess, I'm happy to share those. I'm happy to share those with you. So you now have, thank you, Nene. You now have the P11 form in the chat. So you can please just download and see what it looks like. And then there is Stellis, there is the UNV platform where you just feel it's online. You just feel online. I think IRC also has something similar where you fill your application online and then attach your CV also. So yeah, I don't know if we have further questions. If we do not have further questions, I will invite
I
Betrand
have a
for his
question.
parting shot. Yes,
No, I
please
have a
go ahead.
question.
Yes, please
Okay,
ask your question.
I'll ask the question from a candidate's perspective. Uh, how do I stay coherent with my ideas during a competency-based interview? Because generally during those type of interviews, I have that tendency to panic and I forget my point. So, what do you advise me to do? Question that will usually come up from candidates.
Yeah,
Maybe Marita, you can share your experience before I go ahead to
yeah,
maybe give some guidance.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. I mean, Bertrand, that's a very pertinent question. That's a very, very pertinent question. Now, the very first thing is, like you would have noticed from the presentations, colleagues, you discover that many times competency-based interview questions are very lengthy. They are very, very lengthy. I mean, the very first time I went for a competency-based interview, I was like, what is happening here? Before the before the panelists could even read the question, even she herself was mixing up the phrases and have to read it over again. Myself, I was confused. Luckily, I went in with with a pen and a paper. So I could jot down the questions. And it is also very difficult for you. It is easy for you to just read, maybe say in 1 minute, but to type out the key things that the person is reading out to you is very challenging. So what I did was I will just take bullet like kind of summaries of what the person is saying. And then I discovered that for the most part, it was very difficult for me to quickly understand the question, also grab the question, get a perfect grasp of the question very easily. So what I would do all the time was to say, for those that I did not get, I would ask, please, can you kindly take the question over again? But remember that I don't ask this question more than once, because by the time you start asking, I mean, more than once for the same question anyway. So when I ask, if you and the person is repeating the panelist is repeating the question, it's giving me time to also rethink, like think over the question again and see what possible responses I would provide for that answer. And I'll also jot my responses at the side. Why am I doing so? Sometimes we get into interviews, we have all the answers really outlined in our brain, but there is also called what is called if having a fried brain, like your brain gets fried. There is, because you're coming to the interview many times with the anxiety there is always that anxiety. No matter how many interviews that I have done, to be honest, right up till now, even after this session, if you call me for an interview tomorrow, I will still be anxious. So, um, I would write those answers at the side so that it gives me a chronological way to present my responses. And then many other times, I try as much as I can um, to think as fast as possible. This way, it helps me to organize my responses. I try as much as I can to bring in my personal experiences. I use my personal experiences to substantiate the responses I am providing. And more importantly, if you do not want to be panicking and sweating all over the place, also try as much as you can to be early. Give you again an example. But this time it was not my fault anyway. It may seem as though they had sent me the interview link for a different time zone. And then I joined at the right time zone, the right timing they had given me, only to find that they were asking me why didn't I join earlier. I was panicking the whole time. I joined and I discovered that they were, yeah, and apparently they had given the same link and the same password to all candidates. When I joined in, I saw that there was an older person than myself who was being interviewed. I had to drop from that call, but it made me to panic even the more, you know. But how I solved that, I had to call a friend to share with the friend that I am actually nervous ahead of this interview. And I had to talk with this friend. My I mean, like, it stabilized me in a way. But that notwithstanding, I also like the fact that many times when you get onto those interview panels, it depends on the institution, but all the time I've gone for interviews, many times they would give you a startup question that helps to calm you down, right? So when you like introduce yourself, many times that question, tell us about yourself. Sometimes, not all the time, it's not even graded. Sometimes it's not on the grading scale. Sometimes it's just to put yourself together, and sometimes the HR in question is even going to tell you clearly that this is not going to be graded. So it's just to help you stay grounded. So I don't know if I missed a part of your question, Bertrand.
No, you got it all. That was very fine, insightful. I think that the others did find plenty of takeaways from it. But I will add certain points or maybe reshape others. Interview, you have the pre-interview phase, the interview, and the post-interview. Um, to avoid or to limit panic, anxiety, and so on and so forth, generally, they say you should have the knowledge power. The knowledge power comes from where? From you having a mastery of the subject. It's all about you preparing in terms of understanding the requirements for the position, for you crafting the scenarios, if you know the different competencies. Most of the times, when do we connect? If it's an online interview, we connect maybe 5 minutes before, and by the time we realize our connection is having issues, right? We start panting, right? Let's take time to we'll fix all the bugs. That's going to help us have a calm mind. If it's in interview in person, go ahead, maybe like some 10 minutes or 15 minutes ahead of time. Make sure you familiarize yourself with the environment, right? In case there's something wrong, you can fix it within time. That is the pre-interview. Now you've prepared your scenarios. You're asking yourself, do I come in with my scenario during the interview? Uh, Please, you can make talking points, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
if you've gone through the terms of reference and you've identified specific competencies required, you've crafted scenarios. The next thing is you don't want to be going around with maybe a booklet with scenarios and turning the pages. You have talking points, right?
Mm.
These talking points, you can always have them. You're free to have them. It's an interview, right? You prepared for it. It's not like it's copy work or what. So you have your talking points, which is going to permit you to stay coherent, right? You don't have mix-ups. The next thing during the interview is for you to watch your tone and your debit. Speak gently, but don't count your words, right? Let it not be, I'm looking for the word is or this. No, no. Take it gently so that they see a certain flow in what you are saying, right? Those are some of the tips that will help you not panic during an interview, which I encourage each and every one to practice. So please practice as much as possible this, and maybe you hit the next interview. Thank you, Marita.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so if we do not have any further questions, we would just like to thank you all for taking part in today's session. Thank you for participating. Um, we get your comments. We are already getting feedbacks. Thank you for all the comments that you've sent in, your recommendations. Please, for those who haven't filled the evaluation form, please kindly use the link Nene has dropped in the chat to please send us your feedback so that we can plan for subsequent sessions and make them better. I see that there is a request for us to share resources. Yes, we are definitely going to do that. Um, we see also that we are saying that we should be able to manage the interruptions. Yes, we'll definitely do that. In the next session, we will mute all participants. No, we will not have all questions will be asked in the chat box so that participants do not interrupt with their microphones. We just thought it would be rude. We wanted to make it participatory, but it's not helping. So next session we are going to close that up so that that option isn't there. All questions can come in through the chat box. And then we've been trying as much as we can to make the session less lengthy, but our objective is to pass out as much information as we can because we wouldn't be coming back to this subject anymore. We've handled this subject in two different sessions, so we wouldn't be touching it. This is the third time. We wouldn't be handling it again. So we thought we should get done with it once and for all. Somebody's asking for more scenarios, and another person is asking for more management of time. So we are unsure. We don't know where we stand actually. So we will share with you the scenarios that we crafted. Shout out to Bertrand and Arnold for the good job they did. We worked on all of this together, and I'm really much impressed with the work they did. Um, we keep shouting all the time, please turn off your mic, turn off your mic. So these are part of the ground rules I get from someone. So next time we will sort this out so that we do not have to address that anymore. So we thank you for those who've provided feedback on how we can
Please
improve
send
the
me one.
next session. We see all the suggested topics you've sent in, motivation letters. We covered this already. So I don't know. We did not have we recorded this one offline and the session was very heavy because we blended motivation letters and cover letters. So it's very heavy. I don't know if you can reach out personally. We will try to see how to send it to you. And then setting up a UNV profile, UNV, is there an age limit for UNVs? We would address that in the upper session. We have amazing facilitators that are going to be passed on. Another person is still requesting for competency-based interviews. We cannot go back. We cannot spend the whole time doing competency-based interviews. We will definitely address other stuff. So, guidance on how to join the UN or other UN participation. Okay, so we can get the session, but we may blend that alongside the UNV, the importance of job contract acquisition, renewal, and okay, so we will see how to bring this in another session. How to manage toxic work environments. Okay, so we'll see how to bring this up. There was a question as to how likely you are to attend a session that provides guidance on becoming a United Nations volunteer, the benefits and opportunities for growth. And all the 12 respondents so far said they definitely will attend. So this would likely be our next topic for August. So we are looking forward to seeing you in August, and we'll be having about we wouldn't be having presentations during this session. We will be having about 4 guests who are currently UNVs, some who were UNVs before and are currently consultants and are staff within the UN. We would have we are hopeful to have a UNV who is a human resource as well. These people will be coming in to share with us their experiences. Where did they start from? What are some of the myths? What are some of the opportunities being a UNV? How do you grow from being a UNV to becoming a staff within the UN or taking bigger opportunities? And maybe any other question you may have. So we are looking forward to having you again in March. So far in the chat box, we have the link to the WhatsApp group. You can click and join. Betrand has shared his WhatsApp number. Please feel comfortable to join to speak to Betrand as well. He has shared his WhatsApp number. And he says, drop your request for support via WhatsApp on XYZ number, and someone will provide guidance. Ensure to give your name and remain specific. So thank you very much, Betrand. Thank you everyone for logging in and for staying in right up till this time. We thank you for joining. Career Chats with Nangla remains very grateful for having you, and we look forward to having you in August. Thank you very much and stay committed. Bye.
Bye. Congratulations for this session,
Thank
Marita.
you.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, everyone.